One of the things that irritates me the most with Christian dating advice or this new modern dating concept in the church is the idea that if somebody is still single, it's because they're not holy enough, they're not close enough to God yet, or they're idolizing marriage. Because you and I both know married people who have been blessed by God with spouses who are anything but super holy and super righteous. You and I both know lukewarm Christians that are blessed by God with husbands and with wives. And yes, I'm saying they were blessed by God because if God waited for people to be perfect before he blessed them, none of us would be blessed. You're telling me that Sandy, who got married straight out of college at 22 years old, is more holy than a lady in the church who's been faithfully serving God for 10 years? You're telling me that the married Christians during the time of the Apostle Paul, who was famously single, were more spiritually mature than the Apostle Paul, and that's why they were married and he was single? It's a mischaracterization of God, and it's wrong theology to assume that somebody is still single because they're not close enough to God, or they're not holy, or they're always idolizing marriage. That is not always the case. In fact, it's the same accusatory notion that got Job's friends in trouble, because when you read the book of Job, you see that God was actually upset with his friends because God said that they were mischaracterizing him. Because in the minds of Job's friends, they thought that a person suffering automatically meant that they had done something wrong and that they were in sin. And we actually see that in the book of Job, Job was the most holy person at that time. And the reason for his suffering was actually because of his holiness. It had nothing to do with whether he had sinned. He had not sinned. And God was upset that his friends had a wrong character or a wrong notion of God. Because guess what? God can allow a holy, righteous person who has not sinned to go through suffering. Now, I'm not saying that everybody that's single is, single because they're more holy than everybody else, but I am saying that you shouldn't paint a broad brush. And I think personally that each and every person should ask God for themselves for the reason why they're still waiting for whatever they're waiting for. Because the answers can range, okay? There might be a different reason why a person is single to another person. Like there's so many different reasons why. And what you need to do is you need to ask God specifically about your situation and don't be tempted to paint it with a broad brush. It could be that something else needs to be done. It could be that there was something wrong done. It could simply also be that it's just not the time yet. And it has nothing to do with your holiness. You don't need to lose another 30 pounds, get another certificate, learn to be this perfect robot before God then blesses you. Sometimes it's just simply not the time. It's just simply God's will for now. And another thing about the idolization piece. Now, I agree that we as Christians should not idolize a single thing. I have 2 videos pinned to my page about idolatry. But I also don't believe that we should be using idolatry as a broad brush or a broad reason why a person might still be single. Again, it's very specific to each individual, and each individual needs to seek God for themselves. I never hear people in the church accuse a couple that is struggling to have kids or struggling with fertility of idolatry. I have never heard somebody tell a barren woman, hey, maybe you're just idolizing children and it's not God's will for you to have a child. So stop idolizing children. You would never hear that because that's a crazy thing to say. So why is it that you would never say that to a barren person or a person struggling to have kids who has not had their child yet, but you have no issue saying that to a single person? Let's think and have more compassion for people's situations and not paint them with a broad brush. God bless.